Hi students, Yeshwanth here. Welcome back to Gene Learning. Today we'll be talking about sexual reproduction in flowering plants. But before that, let me say a word of thanks to all my subscribers, all my students, and people who have liked my videos and who are sharing it. Thanks a ton. Thank you so much for your help. Okay, coming back to the topic. So today we'll be talking about, as I told you earlier, sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Now, uh, what do you mean by sexual reproduction? But before going into that, let me talk to you something about reproduction. Now, what is reproduction? Reproduction is a process where an organism, a living organism, gives rise to an offspring or gives birth to an offspring to continue its progeny. I'll repeat once again. Reproduction is a process where a living organism gives birth to a young one, okay, to continue its progeny. Now, before I could continue, let me ask you something. How are we here? You might be wondering if the question was, why are we here? Now, why are we here is a philosophical, spiritual question. I don't want to go into that. That's not our cup of tea right now. But how are we here? Thanks to a age-old, millions and millions of years old process called as what? Any guesses? Okay, it's called evolution. Now, what does evolution have to do with reproduction? Yes. Today, how we are, okay, how we are is thanks to evolution, and this evolution took, as I told you earlier, thousands and thousands, not thousands, millions and millions of years to get us like us who we are here right now, or whatever you see living organisms surrounding us. They all went through this process called as evolution, and evolution happened thanks to process called reproduction. Because of reproduction, evolution happened, and thanks to the great person called Charles Darwin, he decoded evolution for us. And not only him, I should thank John Gregor Mendel for his work on pea plants, who got us genetics. Okay, now coming back to reproduction. Now, reproduction, as we all know, there are two types. One is sexual reproduction, and then there is asexual reproduction. Now let's talk about sexual reproduction. Now here, let me uh, clear one point to you. Sex, the meaning of sex in biology means coming together of the cells by different sex organs. The different sex organs produce cells who together form fertilization and come up with a new organism, and it has nothing to do with what media show. Okay, so sexual reproduction is a process where specialized organs in the body of an organism gives rise to specialized cells through specialized process. Now, let me repeat that for you again. Sexual reproduction is a process where specialized organs in an organism gives rise to specialized or else structures also. Organs or structures, specialized organs or structures gives rise to specialized cells to specialized process. Now let us look at what is that specialized organ. Now that specialized organ is called as gonads. Right. Now, what is that specialized cells which it gives rise to? It's called as, yes, gametes. Right. Okay. Now, what is that specialized process? Yes, it's called as gametogenesis. Right? Okay. So, as you all know, if you talk in terms of animals, gonads are nothing but, okay, in case of human beings, it is testis and ovary. Now, what does testis give rise to? Testis give rise to gametes called as the sperms, and ovary gives rise to ovum. Now, what is that process? Gametogenesis. In case of male, it is spermatogenesis. In case of female, it is oogenesis. So this is the specialized structure or organ, specialized process, and this is okay specialized. Sorry, this is specialized process, and this is specialized cells. Okay, sorry for that mistake. Now coming to, we'll discuss about this in detail in this chapter as well, which is pertaining to that, and gametes, gonads, and everything will come to you in the next chapter, that is sexual reproduction in human beings. Okay, we'll get to that a little later. Now let's talk about asexual reproduction. Now, what do you mean by asexual reproduction? Asexual reproduction is completely different from sexual reproduction because it does not involve any of these. No gonads, no gametes, no gametogenesis, no specialized structure, no specialized cells, no specialized process. It is just that if an organism wants to reproduce asexually, what it does is it just has many of these processes. One is called as, okay, um, can you just guess any of these processes? Asexual reproduction, yes, budding, this is different. Okay. Fission, etc. Okay, budding, you have seen it in sponges. Okay, cycon. Fission, we see this in bacteria, etc. There are different types of it. So asexual, that was about a small introduction about the different types of reproduction which takes place in an organism. Okay, so now coming to the main topic, that is sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Now here in this topic, we have to talk about five different subtopics. Okay, so first one would be, we will be talking about flower, a fascinating organ of angiosperms. What are angiosperms? Angiosperms are flowering plants. In general, we call it like that. Okay, next we have Pre-fertilization, pre-fertilization, structure and events. Structure and events. Then we have what is known as double fertilization. Then again, we come back to what is known as post fertilization. Fertilization. Again, structures and events. I'll get back to you what these mean. And finally, we have what is known as apomixis and polyembryony. Okay. Okay. Now let me refresh this for you. In the chapter Sexual Reproduction in Flowering Plants, we will be talking about 5 subtopics. That is flower, a fascinating organ of angiosperms. Now we know what flower is. Flower is a flower is a reproductive structure in a plant. Okay. So I'll talk to you in detail about this. Next, pre-fertilization. Now, what do you mean by pre-fertilization? Fertilization means meeting up of gametes that I told you earlier. But what is pre-fertilization? Now, yes. Now, as I told you earlier, if you remember, process is very unique. Okay, a process called as fertilization or reproduction is very unique. That too, in terms of sexual reproduction, there is an event which occurs before the formation of the specialized cells or gametes. Okay, so in order for the formation of those, we need the structures which produce them to be ready, okay, for the formation of these gametes. Okay, I'll repeat again. For the formation of gametes, you need specialized structures, and those structures are to be formed in this uh, pre-fertilization event so that the gametes are formed successfully. Then double fertilization. Double fertilization is a very fascinating process where we see that during fertilization, what happens inside an ovary which is fertilized by two male gametes from a pollen grain. Yes, it sounds interesting, right? Okay, and hang on, we'll talk about it. Then post fertilization events. Now, here, look at this. Pre fertilization events is we know that specialized structures has to be formed, and from them you need specialized cells such as gametes to be formed for fertilization. Now, post fertilization, what happens after the double fertilization? There are changes in these structures, and the events which are involved in these changes, like events which unfolded for the formation of the structures before fertilization, we have, yes, the same structures getting changed and events which follow later on. Finally, we come to what is known as apomixis and polyembryony. Now, what do you mean by apomixis? Apomixis is very funny. Why? Because this is a type of asexual reproduction which mimics sexual reproduction. We'll get into the details, don't worry. And polyembryony, as the name itself suggests, many embryos at a time, or In a single event, many embryos are formed or many seeds are formed, to be very simple. Okay, so with this, we shall start with the topic called as the sexual reproduction in flowering plants.